Welcome to this panel hosted by the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, also known as UNCTAD. I am Marisa Henderson, Chief of the Creative Economy section in UNCTAD. And today's panel will focus on impact investment on creative economy as a tool for sustainable development. The final 2 months of 2019 marked a major milestone for the global creative community, as the United Nations ratified a resolution to make 2021 the International Year of Creative Economy for Sustainable Development. This was an important agreement for the creative industries. It recognizes and elevates the creative economy as an important tool for building a sustainable, inclusive, and equitable future. When the resolution was being negotiated and approved, no one could anticipate what the year 2020 would hold, an earth-shattering pandemic. But perhaps what has felt like the end of the world is the beginning of a new one. The health pandemic has witnessed joint efforts by governments, civil society, the private sector, and international organizations to underline the importance of creative economy as part of the solution for the global recovery. Impact investment can and will play a critical role in this journey. We have with us a very distinguished panel of women leaders in the field, all of whom have participated in a recent publication entitled Bringing Impact Capital to the Creative Economy. We have with us Laura Callahan. Laura is the founding partner of Upstart Co-Lab based in New York. Before launching Upstart Co-Lab in 2015, Laura served as a senior deputy chair of the National Endowment for the Arts, the federal arts agency of the United States. We also have with us Carolina Biquard. Carolina is the co-founder and CEO of Fundación Compromiso, an institution which develops and spreads a new model of supporting and investing effectively in social, environmental, and cultural issues among civil society organizations and private enterprises and public institutions throughout Latin America. And finally, we have with us Fran Sanderson. Fran is the director of Arts, Culture, Programs and Investment at Nesta. Fran manages over £30 million impact capital. She had led various projects, including Amplified, a grant and structured support program helping culture and creative organizations to use digital ideas to generate social impact. So without further ado, let's start with Laura. So Laura, please tell us what is impact investment, what is all about, what is a relationship with creative industries, and if you could provide some examples.
Marisa, thank you very much. So I spend a lot of time explaining impact investing to cultural leaders and the creative economy to impact investors. So this is a great place to begin our conversation today. What is impact investing? Impact investing, it's in the creative economy to impact investors. So this is a great place to begin. But it's a different kind of investing. It's investing with an intention to generate positive, measurable, social, and environmental benefits, the impact, alongside a profitable financial return. Currently, $31 trillion of global assets are under management as impact investments. In the United States today, 1 out of every $3 invested is invested with sustainability and impact in mind. That's $17 trillion in the United States alone. Impact investing has absolutely become mainstream, and this is in response to demand from investors. And clients of leading global financial institutions are the reason that BlackRock, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, UBS, all of the major global financial institutions now have expert impact investing advisory teams, and they manage impact funds. This idea that profit with purpose is possible has become the standard for what is good business and good investing. I spend a lot of time also explaining the opportunities in the creative economy to impact investors. And to frame the creative economy for investors, you need to focus on the creative industries. And my organization, Upstart Co-Lab, has identified 145 creative industries, and we've organized them into 5 pillars that for us represent the creative economy in a way that impact investors can recognize it. This is organizing the creative economy along 5 dimensions where impact investors are already active. Ethical fashion. This includes clothes, shoes, jewelry, other accessories. And obviously the fashion industry is a place that's challenged by environmental sustainability and good labor practices. So when impact investors are pursuing ethical fashion, they're looking for companies that are leading on these issues. Sustainable food and beverages, both the food products and also those experiences of trying new things. And the food sector is exciting because it's a place that can raise consumer awareness about environmental conservation issues, healthy food so that people and the planet can be better in the future. Food is also a place that traditions are shared and that heritage is preserved and innovated and moved forward and shared among different people. So the sustainable food space is a very exciting one for impact investors, and it goes way beyond simply agriculture. The third main pillar is social impact media, especially film and TV and video games. Authentic storytelling, the idea that media can be a platform for underrepresented voices to tell their stories. This is both exciting because technology allows us to reach broader audiences, and the access to storytelling, the ability to make a movie more simply facilitated by technology opens this up to a whole new range of storytellers more than ever before. So those are the 3 key industry categories, but then there's an other creative business category, which can include cultural tourism, visual art, architecture, 140 other creative industries that impact investors are not entirely focused on yet, but are an exciting opportunity for the future. And lastly, we think about the real estate, those spaces where creative work happens and creative experiences are shared. And we call this creative places, and we want to ensure that these spaces are affordable and accessible for everybody. The creative economy is expected to reach 10% of global GDP in the near future. Already, global creative industries formally employ 30 million people around the world. In emerging markets, the artisan economy is a major driver of informal jobs for an estimated 300 million people. The creative economy is one of the most rapidly growing sectors of the world economy, which means that there is a chance now, before the sector grows even larger, to shape the creative economy to be more inclusive, equitable, and sustainable. And we believe that impact investing has a role in helping make that happen. The creative economy has not been as well understood by impact investors as it should have been up till now. And part of the reason is that it's often named and framed as arts and culture. And by doing that, it really ignores the depth and the breadth of the business activity. However, when you look a little bit more closely, you realize that sustainable and impact investment funds that are focused on backing women entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs of color, funds that are investing at the community level, and funds that are focused on having a positive effect on the environment are often invested in creative economy businesses. We've found that the creative economy is an on-ramp to opportunity for entrepreneurs who are often overlooked and underestimated. Women and other marginalized communities find opportunities to start businesses in the creative economy, which recognizes merit and originality. We found that the creative economy is fundamental to thriving local communities. So investors who care about community development are often invested in food, fashion, and media businesses. And we've seen that the health of the planet is linked to our creativity and innovation in both production and consumption. So investors who care about the environment can find opportunities in the creative economy. I'll just finish quickly with a few examples of impact investment funds that have a strong representation in the creative economy. One of those is Community Investment Management. It's a fund that's based in the United States, but is soon launching an emerging markets fund. This is a fund in the socially responsible fintech space, and their strategy is to focus on providing access to capital to women and entrepreneurs of color. They have deployed $1 billion since launching 8 years ago and have had very strong financial returns. 25% of Community Investment Management's small business lending portfolio is in the creative economy, demonstrating this overlap I was describing before. For entrepreneurs who are often overlooked and underestimated, the creative economy is an on-ramp to opportunity. The LISC New York City Inclusive Creative Economy Fund was launched in 2018 by the oldest and largest community development finance institution in the United States. The fund finances affordable workspaces, making it possible for creatives to start and grow businesses in New York City and to hire workers into quality jobs in the creative economy. One intention of the fund was to maintain the spirit of New York as a place where creativity is produced and not simply consumed. This was the first impact investment fund focused on arts, design, culture, heritage, and creativity in the context of community development in the United States. Purpose is a fund based in Europe and the United States, and they invest along a set of guiding principles that focus on equitable corporate governance, on employee economic security, and on workplace inclusion and job creation. 60% of the portfolio that Purpose has invested in to date and their forward pipeline is in the creative economy, with a focus in the visual arts, cultural tourism, music, fashion, food, and media. The creative economy and impact investing are both growing quickly in the developing world, and in Africa, we see the HIVA Fund. Out of Nairobi, focused within East Africa, the HIVA Fund invests in fashion, design, film and TV, and video games. So for those who care about shaping a creative economy that is inclusive, equitable, and sustainable, I suggest that they look for impact investing compatriots in this effort. For impact investors seeking high quality, profitable, and impactful opportunities, we hope that they will begin to look more closely at the creative economy. And with that, Marisa, I think I hand it over next to my friend, Carolina.
Okay, good morning to all. I'm so grateful to be here today, sharing with you the project Laura, Fran, and I, Nesta, Upstart Co-Lab, and Fundación Compromiso built together on this creativity, culture, and capital report. I will present creativity at work, delivering social and environmental impact, the role of catalytic grant capital to prepare the ecosystem of impact investing. This section of the report aims to highlight the process by which innovative artists, cultural entrepreneurs, and impact investors can find themselves working together collectively for the greater good of society, demonstrating the powerful and positive potential of the broader creative economy. Collaborative communities, as Laura mentioned, that create cultural purpose, where the development of trusting and flexible partnerships releases a variety of resources that drives creativity to mobilize capital to accomplish results. I selected two of our essays to present today, one from Argentina and one from the UK. Both are very digital oriented according to the pandemic times we are living. The first one is called Potrero Digital, PD, a network of collective learning centers for digital trades that aim to generate work and employment opportunities for underserved youth in the digital economy, hosted at Fundación Compromiso, sponsored by companies as Google, Amazon, JP Morgan, Cisco, among others. There is no literal translation for the word potrero in the English vocabulary, but an attempt at a definition would be that the potrero is an abandoned land or lot in a neighborhood where children gather to play soccer. The name Potrero Digital embodies the spirit of the project because it encourages the same grown-up kids raised playing in these lots to combine the digital education to build a future where effort increases opportunity. The PD community now includes more than 3,000 students from vulnerable areas in the most marginal districts of Argentina and startups operations in Brazil, Mexico, Chile, and Uruguay, and soon in the UK. We understand the program to be economically sustainable when practiced at scale. PD's goals, in summary, is to train young people in digital trades and to deliver opportunities in qualified employments or self-made freelance digital services for a segment of the population habituated to manual trades. The model is predicted on scaling sustainability through forward contracts. Future sales of digital services will provide students with the required upfront capital, which they then repay according to a pre-established schedule contingent on sufficient earnings. The measure of success for Potrero Digital students is employability. The animation and video games learning modules turned out to be the seedbeds to discover and empower young creators to grow the trend of freelance work, particularly beneficial in these years COVID-19's driven lockdowns, since the infrastructure of home working is already established. Students develop their skills through structured education at PDE and organically through a mentoring process during working experience at corporations or as freelancers. PDE provides this pathway-oriented framework tied to the solutions of social essentials, with its corporate volunteers reinvented as coaches of the working students of Potrero Digital. Fundación Compromiso developed the approach of using smart subsidy as a means to scale a high potential product and as a tool to enable the participation of more commercially oriented funding. So we can see that a proper system to structure grant capital can be absolutely critical to ensuring the development of the market and the achievement of outcomes. The second case is the Royal Shakespeare Company Audience of the Future Live Performance Collaboration Program. Collaboration with digital pioneers can help theater reimagine its connection with its audience. In the pandemic, this is proving vital. To commemorate the 1400th anniversary of Shakespeare's death in 2016, the ERC collaborated with Intel and the Imaginarium Studios to create a groundbreaking production of The Tempest, Shakespeare's last play and arguably his smooth magical story world. Bringing live performance captured technology to the theater for the first time, they created animated versions of the spirit character Ariel live on stage through motion capture sensors in the suit worn by the actor Mark Quartley. Digital technology was also used to bring to life other aspects of the play, the harpy, the hounds, and the spectacle of the mask. They also created a Snapchat filter of Ariel, which reached 7.5 million people on a single day. They made a conscious decision to keep the text central so that decisions around the technology could be traced back to Shakespeare and his words. Alongside the production, they commissioned research to understand how technology partners inspire the RSC creative team and how the RC creative team inspire technology partners, and how learning from this project could be of use to the arts sector in developing future collaborations. Working together on The Tempest was a catalyst for each of the partners to innovate by looking at the art, technology, and tools differently, while the research and development process provided a framework to deliver on this shared potential. The Audience of the Future Live Performance Collaboration was born, building on a consortium of a marquee arts organization, research organization, and digital pioneers. They were awarded a grant to produce a live performance demonstrator immersive project with the aim of reaching 100,000 people. This year, this will come to life in a striking new interpretation of A Midsummer Night's Dream. When COVID-19 hit in March 2020, 2020, they had to radically rethink the project. What was intended to be an immersive location-based theatrical performance with actors and audiences together in Stratford became a completely digital experience. They had to reimagine not only how they connected with the audience, but how they would conceive, workshop, and create the production. They commissioned a consortium consultation and audience research to understand what technology people had in their hands, recognizes that the homes had become a destination for live performance and the rituals of theater needed to be imagined in a completely new way. How to use technology to deepen the connection between themselves and their audiences became a more urgent question than ever. Alongside this, how could they have a connection with the buildings at a time when neither they nor their audiences could be in them? Once again, they tend to be newest technology. They contracted visualization and theater production consultancy studio Preview to produce a digital replica of the RSC campus in Stratford. This involved a 1-week on-site LiDAR laser scan to capture the entire site to a 2mm accuracy. Following the laser scan and point cloud generation, Preview CAD artists modeled the space to the same precision captured in the scan using thousands of photographs taken on site to ensure a photorealistic look. I will show you now how you can see it in our report, how you can see the theater. Oh, hold on 1 second. I'm sorry. I don't know why it's not.
Well, why don't you just continue, and then
Okay.
if you want to do it, otherwise we will put it on a, in a photo.
I was able to do it 1 second ago, but okay.
Yes,
That's
always
fine.
happens.
It always happens, you're right. Well, you'll see that shows a screenshot of one of these models running live in real time in an engine. It is not a photo, not a render, but a model in which to explore and create work. What started as a means of responding to a crisis opened a world of possibilities for virtual production, becoming not just a solution, but a playground. This project takes very seriously the imperative of demonstration. The consortium is aiming both to create brilliant content and to create and develop new tools that can be exploited and enhanced for the benefit of creatives and audience everywhere, working with existing systems and building sustainable business models to support the future of live performance. We have seen starkly through the pandemic the unique power of culture and creativity to engage, console, and unite us. The power of story and narrative to deliver important messages, put technology in the hands of artists, and the most amazing and unexpected outcomes are possible. I can see a future when Potrero Digital and artists from Argentina, Brazil, and Venezuela will be working together with the Royal Shakespeare companies or other programs like these ones, and you will join these artists and creative entrepreneurs from a developed functioning society like the UK with creatives from Venezuela, Argentina, Brazil, Africa, experts in surviving strategies, and the world will definitely change for good.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much.
I wish I could show.
Okay, why don't we just, have you finished with your presentation? We can go back, you can try.
I'm finished. Here I can show, here,
coming.
Here you can see the picture. Here you can see the picture.
Oh, that's amazing.
Of the theater, you see?
Yeah.
And it's modeling. this is the life, and this is the future and the present.
Okay, Carolina, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate this presentation. I would like to now go to Fran for her presentation. So Frank, could you please tell us more about how we connect capital impact, impact capital to the creative economy?
Sure, I'd love to. Thank you so much, Marisa, for the opportunity to be here and chat with you, my wonderful friends today. So my story, as I think it says in my bio, I started off straight out of university at JP Morgan. I became a fund manager, and I was managing alongside being kind of a global financial analyst on a big desk responsible for a great sum of money. I managed a small ethical fund, which was really where I wanted to be. And that was run with a negative screening process. So someone else would tell us what we could and couldn't invest in. And whilst I was really excited by the possibility of ethical investing, I felt pretty frustrated by this. And this is back in kind of 2008, 2009, by the fact that I was making investment decisions, but I didn't have access to or influence on the ethical decision. And that to me didn't really feel like a holistic approach. And it didn't feel like we were using capital to its advantage in terms of actively affecting change. I then had a short career break, and I started at Big Society Capital in 2012. Now, Big Society Capital is the UK's impact investment wholesaler, and that was set up with £650 million of dormant account money in order to build and stimulate a market in impact investing. And it was a really amazing perspective for me as an employee to get an overview of a nascent market and what was happening there. One of the things we were looking at as we were seeding funds with the money from Big Society Capital was sector-specific funds. They were struggling a bit at this time because of the constraints on pipelines. So, you set up a fund, they're trying to find things to invest in. If you limit them to one sector, they're going to have even more of a struggle. But I was quite intrigued by the possibility of creating pools of capital with sufficient sway to influence demand for funding and to have a sector speciality in the investment team, and what in fact this might have on sector behavior and best practice, and also investment performance. So if you had an investment team who really knew about sector in a deep way that they were investing in, might that change the behavior and stimulate best practice throughout the sector? And might it give you better performance as an investment manager? So these are the things I was mulling over as I was working at Big Society Capital. I then went for a secondment to Esme Fairbairn Foundation, which is a huge UK foundation focused, one of its key investment areas is the arts. And they've been a real trailblazer, innovating around social sector funding even before Big Society Capital arrived on the scene. As part of that secondment, I got involved with the design phase of a project called the Arts Impact Fund, or the Arts Ventures Fund as it was then. And that was a project designed to use repayable finance to boost income in impact-generating arts and culture organisations. Now, this initiative came around from a very happy alignment of interests, really. So there was Arts Council England, who is the UK's public funder, the England public funder, and they receive lottery money and public grant and aid from the government to support the arts and culture sector. And they were looking at some of their grants and thinking, okay, well, if we give, say, the Yorkshire Sculpture Park a big grant to develop a paid car park, and that actually creates an income stream for the organisation, couldn't we make that a repayable grant, and then we could reuse that money elsewhere in the sector because it's going to generate a significant income stream. And the other side of that was they wanted their organizations to get accustomed to receiving investment. Esme Fairbairn, they had been trying to make social impact investments in the arts and culture and hadn't really found the demand, even though the supply was there. So they wondered if having a sector specific lender, so a body that was actually making these loans, would help them get more of their investment capital into the arts and culture. Nesta, who Marisa mentioned I work for now, is an innovation foundation in the UK. It's sometimes we call it a think and do tank. So it's the research, we call it the innovation spiral. So thinking about research, policy movements, innovation programs, the grant programs, impact investing, other methods such as anticipatory regulation. So it's really about how to affect change for social good using innovation. And creative economy had been a key area of focus for Nesta, done lots of research in that area. and particularly around innovation and funding models. At the same time, Nesta, which has its own endowment, it's an endowed independent charity, having been previously a public body, putting some of that endowment to work towards its overall mission, something we call programme-related investment in the UK. We also had the UK Cabinet Office, who were very interested in stimulating models which blended public, private and philanthropic money in a fund together. And they introduced us to Bank of America, who are obviously a commercial organisation, but a big CDFI lender. Laura earlier mentioned community development finance institutions in the US, and they're a big arts funder. So with those 5 parties in the room, we managed to come to some agreement. And it's an interesting thing I'll come back to later, that there were moments where the 5 of us around the table were so far apart, but there was that will in this, or almost talking different languages, but there was that real will to get this done. And that's been something that stayed with me. So after a while, lots of negotiations, we established a £7 million pool of capital. And what I find really, looking back and at the time, I thought was really refreshing and was really actually far-sighted, was that the pool of capital was established and we looked at the market and we thought, what kind of interest rate do we think these organizations can take? At which point do we think we will stimulate demand for this product? We then ran the model and backed out from that what the various investors would get from their investment. So that enabled us to have the patience and be prepared to find the market and determine the returns from there. It's a structured fund, so the investors have different risk and return profiles. And the loan bracket that we were extending to organisations, which was between £150,000 and £600,000, was determined pretty much by minimising running costs. We knew that if we were going to be making many small loans, it would cost more, and more of that £7 million would sort of leak into the friction of deploying the capital. I was then lucky enough to be invited by Nesta to come and run the fund. So I moved over to Nesta, and we with another, with Siva Phillips, who is my wingman, my dear friend and colleague. And we fully invested that in 2018. We've got 27 organizations. You can see those on our website, the kind of organizations that we've invested into. One I'd like to draw attention to is the National Holocaust Centre and Museum. Now, they wanted our money to help them develop a digital idea, which was how to preserve the experience of interacting directly with a Holocaust survivor. So they developed with a tech partner a holographic projection which used natural language processing. So you can actually have the experience of conversing directly with someone and asking them about their experience. We have another organisation which is actually in our next fund, In-House Records, which they work with prisoners, people in the prison system in the UK, and the prison population, and they use music as a method of engagement. They have a record label. They employ lots of people once they've exited prison. They're a really extraordinary organisation who've pivoted remarkably into much more of an education provision in the last year, where they haven't been able to obviously get into the prisons because of the pandemic and lockdown. They have created an extraordinary magazine and learning resource that they're doing, 30 pages once a month. It's really quite amazing. And the will of and the ingenuity of people in the sector never fails to astound me. All investors in the Arts Impact Fund are still currently due to get their expected returns, even in spite of lockdown and the pandemic. Of course, that is partly due to the support of Arts Council England and the UK government with both the furlough scheme and the Cultural Recovery Fund. We did find demand for loans smaller than 150,000. So we established a new fund called the Cultural Impact Development Fund with different funders, and they were looking at a model to stimulate demand in subscale lending. So that's a £3.5 million fund that started in 2018. And with that one, we were able to get a broader remit. So with the Arts Impact Fund, we had to invest along with the arts. And this goes to Laura's point earlier about really the understanding the breadth of the creative economy. Arts Council England, through no fault of their own, through the terms under which they received their funding, were limited to very much arts and performing arts, music, that kind of thing, with some community arts organisations. With the Cultural Impact Development Fund, we broadened out that horizon to creative businesses, more social enterprises. We're still investing that one. In 2020, we launched a £23 million follow-on fund following the successful deployment of the Arts Impact Fund, called the Arts and Culture Impact Fund. We're still raising money into this until August this year. Deployment's going well, again, in spite of the current circumstances. We've got 3 new investors, and encouragingly, all 4 of our original investors in the Arts Impact Fund have invested additional funds. So those are the 3 funds we've got operating to date. We're talking to, we've got other options that we're looking at in development at the moment. And the Arts and Culture Impact Fund also added heritage to our remit officially. So we're looking at some models in heritage, which quite often will intersect. We've got a couple of projects that we funded, one in Hackney and one in Glasgow, which are bringing heritage buildings back to life with an arts and culture angle to them. Alongside doing these fund works, in 2016, I took over responsibility for Nesta's grant funding and some of Nesta's practical research work in the sector. And this included a digital research and development fund. Apologies for my typing hands earlier. I was preparing all the links so I can drop these into the chat. A digital arts and culture accelerator, a crowdfunding pilot in arts and heritage, the digital culture survey for Arts Council England, which tries to take the temperature of where the cultural sector is in terms of its engagement with digital technologies. Amplified, the programme that Marisa kindly mentioned earlier. A horizon scan, looking at what the big issues are over the next 10 years for arts organisations, and that was to inform Arts Council England's 2030 strategy. Alter Narratives, which was a programme designed to bring the short story form into the 21st century with the aim of engaging young people with the practice of reading for pleasure. And we're a research partner around audience engagement for this RSC Audience of the Future programme that Carolina talked so eloquently about. I also work closely with my colleagues on the Creative Industries Policy and Evidence Centre, which is based at Nesta, where Laura sits on the international panel. And the reason I bring this up is it's been absolutely critical having these dual perspectives, because it's really helped me understand how to support enterprise in the sector, stimulate new models, and build a genuine investment ecosystem from Appleseed to Orchard. I feel like I probably overshot my 7 minutes there, and I'll drop all of these links now into the chat so people can have a look at them. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Look, I'd like to ask some questions. So let me know if you finished. Thank you for sharing this. Okay. So Frank, have you finished?
Yes, I'm finished.
Well, it was lovely. Thank you so much. I really love everything you said, and I want to encourage the audience to go on and check the book, Bringing Impact Capital to the Creative Economy. It's online. These wonderful women have produced this publication, and the examples are there. So, because as you can see, you have so much to give. I really love the idea of profit for purpose. The 5 pillars that Laura mentioned, the examples that Carolina provided, and also the examples that Frank talked about, particularly the experience in Nesta. So before we have 20 minutes, so I would like just to ask some questions to the back. Well, as I mentioned at the beginning, you are 3 wonderful leaders. So I want to ask Carolina, is it meaningful that 3 women are leading this global push to connect impact investment to the creative economy?
Absolutely. With more than 285 million women and producing so many entrepreneurial in the creative economy, absolutely. This is what is going to happen in the future, definitely.
So 285 million women working in creative industries. Is that the number?
Yeah.
Where did we get this number from? What's the source?
Laura, could you help us with this?
The sources are footnoted in the report. I think a lot of research comes from our friends in the UN system and beyond. 30 million people are employed in the formal economy through the creative economy. Half of those are women. 300 million folks are employed in the creative economy informally, and 90% of those are women. So when you add the 15 and the 270, you get 285 million women are working in the creative economy around the world.
Amazing, amazing. So the gender dynamic is very, very important because generally we talk about creative economy is very labor intensive, but it also has a very important element in gender dynamics. Thank you. Now that you are here, Laura, I think you mentioned when you were discussing that the creative economy has not been prioritized before by impact investing. So why do you think that is?
You know, this is what gets me up in the morning, because it confuses me, given the size and the scope of the opportunity as we see it, that the creative economy has not been fully embraced by impact investing until now. More than 20 years ago, I was working at the Rockefeller Foundation. I was the Deputy Chief Investment Officer, and I was co-leading Rockefeller's initial impact investing work in the late 90s and early 2000s, something called the Program Venture Experiment, Provenex. And so at that time, we started to make impact investments in all 4 areas where the Rockefeller Foundation at that time was also making grants. And one of those 4 program areas was creativity and culture. And so we made 2 investments in creativity and culture that were impact investments. One was with the Smithsonian Institution's Folkways Records Division, and one was to support a new software company called Netomat, which grew out of an exhibition at the Whitney Museum of American Art. So these were 2 examples that were right alongside agriculture, health, and community development investments that the Rockefeller Foundation made 20 years ago. So you would think, having the creativity and culture in at the very start of impact investing, and the fact that the Rockefeller Foundation went on to be a real leader in building the ecosystem for impact investing in the United States, that the creative economy should have grown along with the whole sector and should have been part of that journey. And it didn't happen. I think that part of it is that the leaders and the advocates who would have connected the dots for impact investing in the creative economy for some reason were absent. I think the point that you just made with Carolina around the fact that this is a sector that has strong representation by women, and that a majority of workers in the creative economy globally are women. I think that while it should be a positive, particularly with the energy around gender lens investing around the world, for some reason, I think that may have held it back initially. And going back to what I was describing in terms of definitions, framing this as arts and culture really misses the point of this being an investable sector. And unfortunately, the Global Impact Investing Network, the GIN, which has done so many wonderful things in the impact investing space, in their annual survey of where their members are investing, every year they report investments in arts and culture alongside manufacturing and agriculture and affordable housing and microfinance. And by framing it as arts and culture, they miss the breadth of activity that's in the creative sector. And they report that their members are not really invested in arts and culture at all. They report it as 0% of where their members are invested. It's a rounding error. So it's obviously less than 0.5%. And that, I think, has really hurt the conversation. The other thing I would say, and this may be more of a US perspective, is the absence of endowed cultural institutions as institutional impact investors has also retarded the focus on the creative economy. Universities and foundations in the United States have been extremely active as impact investors, reflecting both their values and their mission in their endowments. And unfortunately, the museums, the libraries, the performing arts centers, the art schools, the artist endowed foundations in the United States have been very, very slow to do this. Now, I'm happy to report that there are some early examples, and my organization, Upstart Co-Lab, published a report in December that shared a half dozen first mover examples of where art schools and museums are beginning to invest in alignment with their values and their mission. We've got the role model of the Louvre Museum Endowment Fund, which over the past few years has allocated 5% of its endowment to socially responsible investments, specifically aligned with the creative sector, focused on cultural heritage and artists and crafts, which is very, very exciting. And I'm happy to say that right now at Upstart Co-Lab, we are advising 15 museums from across the United States who in aggregate have $5 billion in their endowments about how to start to invest, particularly in alignment with their commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion, and access. So I see this as beginning to change, but I think these are all factors. The leadership wasn't there. The fact that this is a place that entrepreneurs who are overlooked and underestimated can succeed, unfortunately, I think has held back the sector a bit. The labeling it as arts and culture rather than creative economy was unhelpful. And the absence of cultural institutions as impact investors has been slow to this point, but as I said, glad to report that that's seeming to change.
Thank you, thank you. All points really, really important. The issue about the labeling of arts and culture instead of creative economy is really, really important. That's why I did mention that the fact that the resolution is about creative economy rather than culture. So it's making the aspect of the business, the industry side, the economic game, the diversity.
And creativity, and it's a whole new conception.
Yeah, there is intellectual property, there is business side, and so it creates. I think it opens the door for recognition that this is a sector that goes beyond the Ministry of Culture. Although it has to go a bit more. It has to be a multidisciplinary concept. I think. So thank you for that. I would like Fran. Yes, tell me.
Just to finish with the women and this enormous window of opportunity in developing countries where women are having the lead and creativity is our normal, because we cannot live without creativity. And really, as it was in the 80s, the microfinance, where women were the ones that showed trust and were leading, I think we have an enormous opportunity with the great, the whole new concept Laura has so well explained of creative economy and leading, and many women leading this. It's what's really happening.
Thank you very, very much. So Fran, I'd like to mention, so you started this global report. So what is next?
Oh, thanks, Marisa. I mean, so I've been thinking about what it was that brought the three of us together and why these three people, these three women, the two women in particular that I thought we would really connect well. And I think, it's a bit of post-rationalization, but I think what I recognized in both Laura and Carolina was that they are, deeply analytical thinkers and very, they're very keen on making the perfect amount of preparation, but they're doers. And we're all doers. And I think we all wanted to avoid kind of analysis paralysis. And this is a thorny problem. And there's lots of, worries about definitions. And we went through all these conversations when we were putting together the website about what taxonomies we should use. But ultimately, this is important. It's actually urgent as well. Our creative industries are in severe risk of underinvestment. This is an opportunity to empower particularly women and Indigenous people of color throughout the world with capital. So what we want to do is to really gather a pool of capital, create a network that distributes that capital equitably through the world via the creative economy. So what we'd really like to do is, we've got our report, we published the report, and when we were thinking about publishing it, we thought, well, what we don't want is to drop a PDF which people look at and go, oh, that's nice, and put it to the bottom of the drawer, I'll read it sometime. And we were also really aware that what we were doing in the initial report was representing the people that we knew. And what we also knew was there were lots of other people out there who were doing exactly the same thing throughout the world. And we wanted to create our report as a magnet and a critical mass and a center of gravity for all those stories. So we're inviting more contributions. We want to have 100 essays published on the website by the end of 2021, this year of sustainable economy, creative economy for sustainable development. And we also want to create a community around that. So we'd love to have some more interactivity on the website. We want to hear from anybody who's interested in joining us in this mission. And ultimately, what we'd love to do is work out how we create a global fund. And we really kind of supercharge that effort to create a financial system around the creative economy and an impact system, an impact-led financial system. So that is our next move.
So are you going to continue doing this report like annually, or how do you see it like that? Or?
I think so 2021 is our year of focus, and we'll see what happens. You know, we want to get to that 100 essays by the end of 2021. I think we're well on our way to doing that. We're definitely not at a problem of undersupply of contributors, which is what we hoped for. And we are receiving, you know, interested inquiries from people around the world, and really hoping to build that momentum. And I think with each release of additional essays, we're hoping that snowball will grow.
We definitely want to catalyze whatever is around the world that will move the capital for greater good in the creative economy. Really, that's what we are aiming to do, and that's all the work we are doing. That's our vision.
That's excellent. That's excellent. I think it also goes very, very well with the main theme of the summit, Abu Dhabi Summit, you know, the cultural economy. And when we were discussing this with the organizers, one of the key elements that we are coming to the discussion all the time is the sustainability of creative industries, the different models that the different organizations use to promote creative economy. And while the first panel, the opening panel, showed how important it had been during COVID, the support of the governments to overcome the crisis during the pandemic, I think it was also clear from that panel that we needed something else. We needed to promote investment and to encourage investment and trade on creative industries. So I think the issue of impact investment really, really goes to the heart of this summit. So we have a little bit time left, and I would like to give the floor to you, 2-3 minutes to give us your your 2 cents and your key messages and your takeaways, so the public can take note and come back to you guys if it seems they need more clarifications. So may I give the floor to Laura first, then Carolina, and then Fran. Laura, you have the floor.
Marisa, thank you very much. Well, I'll just say what motivated Upstart Co-Lab to launch 5 years ago was the belief that creative people solve problems, and that we wanted to disrupt how creativity was funded. And we thought the best way to do that was to connect impact investing to the creative economy, because we saw so many artists and designers and other creatives. They are inherently social entrepreneurs. They are naturally trying to solve problems, not just for themselves, but for their neighbors, for their communities. They are very oriented to tradition and innovation. They're very oriented to a view of the world that's bigger than just their little corner of it. These are people who are entrepreneurs in every sense of the word, innovators in every sense of the word, and they just have an additional tool set that they can bring to the problem solving. If you're an entrepreneur with an MBA or a business background, you are typically navigating that tension between delivering social and environmental impact or delivering financial return. And there's always been this question about whether you have to sacrifice one in order to gain the other. And as I work deeply with more than 100 creative entrepreneurs who are launching businesses and raising impact capital to build their ideas, to scale and sustain their solutions, I see over and over again that these creative entrepreneurs bring something else to that dyad of impact and profit. They bring creativity, and they're able to break the logjam between those two opposing forces by creating a new option, creating a new solution. There's one entrepreneur that we work with. He's a tremendous artist and sculptor. He has also become a furniture designer as a way to employ his folks in his community. And there was tension with his investors because they wanted to have a greater profit on the desks that they were making at this furniture company. And so to gain more profit, they wanted to offshore the production outside of the United States. But part of the strategy for this entrepreneur was to create jobs locally. And so he had to redesign the desk in order to allow it to be made in the United States and accomplish its impact of local jobs, which was important for him, and still meet the profit goals of the investors. So to me, that is what the creative can bring to this question about social entrepreneurship. They're able to have this superpower of creativity that is amplifying both the social return and the financial potential of the work that they're doing, the companies that they're building, the products and services that they're providing. It's very, very exciting.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you very much. Carolina, your final word?
Well, as Laura mentioned, what I could say that would bring me to this place was that from Fundación Compromiso, always trying to get the chance to the social entrepreneurs to bring the solutions that the public and the state would not bring. And it was so important to, as all the money in our countries, mainly the great bad investor in our countries are the state, it was so important to bring together those two worlds, to have the public investor to see the returns, the social investment, and to, of course, bring the private sector to really understand that without impact, there was no chance of development in our countries. So what we started to do after professionalizing civil society from Fundación Compromiso, and then trying to work as an investor from the National Arts Fund, Argentinian National Endowment for the Arts, just to see how important it is to blend those capitals and to make this mix together. And what we have seen all along, all these examples we bring, it's the importance of these bridges, of these partnerships, and to all the multilateral organizations like the UN that are listening to us, to understand how important it is, the management, the way the creative entrepreneurs are working, and how that patient capital will then become the sustainability we need.
Okay. I need to cut so I can give the floor to Frank because we have 2 minutes left. So I just wanted to make sure that Frank has his final words as well. Frank, this is your turn.
Thank you. Thanks very much. I think what I would say is, if you look at the report, you can see what the creative economy is doing and the power it has to affect positive change. And that's without intentionality or capital. So imagine what it could do with those three things. And that's what we're really trying to bring to this. And I think that's the passion that the three of us all have, and all of our partners that we're working with on the report.
Well, thank you so much. It has been a pleasure and honor to moderate this discussion. And I hope we can do this again. But in the meantime, I would like to invite people to look at all the links that are in the chat room, and also consult the book, Bringing Impact Capital to the Creative Economy. Thank you very, very much. Bye.
Thank you,
Marisa, for this wonderful invitation.
Yeah, thank you, Marisa. Thank you for your support.
Bye.